I work for a trade association representing companies looking to deliver CCS projects, commercial CCS projects, and we strongly believe that CCS is a really exciting industrial opportunity for the UK, and we are well positioned to take a lead in this particular area. And we are tremendously excited by the proposition that's been put forward in Teesside, because I think you would probably be hard pressed to find a region that's better suited to develop an industrial CCS cluster. It's really got a number of unique characteristics. I mean, firstly, it's ideally located between what we hope and believe will be the first two UK CCS projects in operation. So the government's currently running a competition. They have two projects in that competition. One of those is looking to develop a CCS project up in Peterhead, and the second project is looking to develop a project south of Teesside in the Humber region. And both of those projects are going to offer really interesting opportunities for synergies between what's being proposed in Teesside and the infrastructure that's being developed there. In particular, the opportunity to see about leveraging the CO2 transport and storage infrastructure that's put in place by those first projects, which can enable this second phase of industrial CCS projects to come forward. So that's one of the first advantages that the region has. The second, and we've heard about this, is that it is a pretty unique cluster of CO2 emitters in a very small geographical area, so particularly well suited to the type of infrastructure we're looking to develop, which is necessary to harvest these CO2 emissions cost effectively. And then the third point I'd make is, I think you really have to pay tribute to the vision that both Tees Valley Unlimited and the industrial partners have had in terms of recognising the opportunity that CCS presents to the region, and then actually pursuing that and trying to make that work. And I think this work's tremendously exciting for that reason. The second point I want to make is around technology readiness. Now, some of you may have heard of an organisation called the Global CCS Institute. This is an international body, and as part of their work, they undertake an assessment of all of the large-scale projects that are operating or under construction or development around the world. Their latest assessment has found that there are 19 large-scale industrial CCS projects that are either operating or under construction today. However, regrettably, none of those are located either here in the UK or in Europe. But I think the point I want to make here is that industrial CCS is not an R&D challenge. This is not an innovation challenge. We know that technology works. It's being deployed in multiple regions around the world. And actually, the challenge we have to face is about getting the policy right. And this piece of work is really trying to answer the right question, which is how do you put in place an environment which enables industrial companies to support the early deployment of a technology that's going to be critical for their long-term future. And I think that last point really speaks to the central challenge here, which is how do we make industrial CCS commercially viable? Now, I mentioned those 19 projects that are operating around the world. When you look at each of those projects, what you tend to find is that they have kind of very unique set of circumstances which has enabled those projects to go forward. So maybe they find another industrial customer who will buy the CO2 from them. They may have a regulatory requirement to store that CO2. But this piece of work is fundamentally different, because what this is looking to develop is the infrastructure that can enable the development of a CCS-ready industrial zone. And that's really exciting in terms of providing a long-term future both for current emitters in that region, but then also going forward for future emitters that are looking to invest in new capacity. And I think credit also has to go to DEC here in terms of providing the funding for this piece of work, and for also recognising the opportunity that CCS presents to the region, but also to industrial actors in this country. And it's also this concept of CCS industrial zones that's going to be really key going forward. And I think this work will resonate far beyond Teesside. If we look at some of the scenarios for how we expect CCS to be deployed in the future, then what we expect is that we will see multiple CCS industrial zones developed, which will enable the cost-effective harvesting of CO2 from these sources and its transportation to the long-term storage sites. And so I believe that the lessons that will be coming out of Teesside will resonate both for other industrial regions located here in here in the UK, but also further afield in Europe. And there is quite a lot of interest now in what's happening here in Teesside. I believe you'll see that interest only increase going forward. And industrial CCS is really starting to go up the political agenda. I think its importance is recognised here in the UK now, but also when we look at the European debate around the competitiveness of the European economy, about how you retain energy-intensive industries in a region that also has very ambitious climate goals, then that's where really industrial CCS comes to the fore here. And as we progressively decarbonise our economies, both here in Europe but also internationally, then those regions that have access to industrial CCS infrastructure will be better placed than those regions that don't have access to that infrastructure. So I think the work that we're going to hear about here today is incredibly exciting, and I think it really puts Teesside at the forefront of what will be in future a very, very significant sector. And I believe that we'll probably be seeing the export of the know-how and knowledge that's generated in Teesside to these other industrial regions, both here in the UK and elsewhere.
Thank you very much.